On this edition of North Bay Bountiful, we explore gardening and community. Gardens of all shapes and sizes, public and private, increase biologic diversity, encourage healthy soil production, and save energy. Gardens are also places of beauty and education.
North Bay Bountiful is made possible in part by Rocky, the free-range chicken, and Rosie, the original organic chicken. The Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District. Made Local magazine and Sonoma County Go Local. And through the generous support of the Sonoma County Water Agency. Cultivate, celebrate, connect.
Gardens have been celebrated in poetry and painting, cultivated by the very rich on expansive grounds and by those with few resources on small plots of land. Communities benefit when the produce and the beauty of garden spaces are shared. The relationships that communities have with gardens can take many forms. Jasmina Cerda is a soil biologist specializing in ecology, landscapes, and horticulture. She explains the relationship between gardening, soil health, and our need to cultivate.
The world of gardening is definitely shifting. There are more people who are interested in soil, realizing that it is a very dynamic environment, and even the majority of people that I interact with understand that their soil is alive in a sense. As we've learned about probiotic advantages in our own bodies with our own health and fermented products and taking probiotics, same applies to the soil, even with some of the same species. Urban gardening and gardening in containers in areas that aren't conventionally thought to be of your garden space allows us so much potential because we are able to then create an ecosystem from scratch, and the learning potential is infinite. So when we build our soil, we have the raw materials, the sand, silt, the clay, the compost, the organic matter. We add the biology, and then we get to see it grow into a self-sustaining system. And when you do that from an urban perspective, it's amplified because everything in that soil you had a part of. You built that, and then you get to see the success out of something that was never there before.
The Lexicon of Sustainability is a film project that explores the many ways people interact with gardens, agriculture, and economics. In this story, the Lexicon explores the phenomenon of urban farming.
In the 20th century, the United States witnessed the greatest migration in its history. But it wasn't new lands people were discovering. It was cities. By the end of the 20th century, nearly 80% of Americans lived in urban areas. And they no longer knew who grew their food. Then, something happened. People started saying, "Yes, in my backyard." They started growing food on city rooftops, on freeway off-ramps, and even in their own front yards. They raise farm animals on their balconies, milk them right in their own kitchens, and even keep their own bees. But can these people feed entire cities? No. Instead, it's about reconnecting people to where their food comes from, reminding them that apples come from trees, that milk comes from cows, that chickens lay eggs, and that carrots actually grow in the ground, and that all of it requires people. When you discover where your food comes from, that someone cares for it, that someone grows it, then brings it to you, you develop a different way of looking at food. Urban farming reminds you that food has a face and a name, and it makes food real. To learn more about terms like urban farming, YIMBY, urban apiary, and rooftop farm, visit lexiconoffood.com where your words can change the world.
Most of the foods we grow and eat start life as seeds. Flavor, nutritional value, and varietal characteristics are all determined by the seeds we cultivate and where they come from.
So plants have evolved based on their environment, just as their beneficial microbes that have a symbiotic relationship with them have evolved as well. So it's important to use plant species and microbial species that are native to your area, because they will have the different traits and enzymes and antibodies, and they have evolved chemically, physically, biologically to interact with this environment. And so it's much easier to have success with limited loss and limited pests and diseases if we're growing native species in their native habitat with their native microbes.
The Petaluma Seed Bank curates one of the largest selections of 19th century heirloom seeds in the nation and makes them available to gardeners everywhere. Seed banking encourages biologic diversity and community awareness and creates safe havens for pollinators.
There's definitely a food movement taking place where people are taking the initiative to grow their own food.
Heirloom seeds are increasingly popular among gardeners desiring a wider diversity of seed stock and a reconnection with our agricultural roots. The Seed Bank is among the outlets now making heirloom seeds available to the public.
An heirloom seed is a seed that's been around for 50 years or more, and it's a true seed, meaning that it's open pollinated. Some of the seeds that we have here have been traced back to Thomas Jefferson. You can save your seeds from fruit or from vegetables that you've grown from heirloom seeds. You can't do the same thing with hybrids.
Heirlooms breed offspring similar to the parent. Growers can save and plant those seeds generation after generation. Hybrids do not produce uniform offspring. Growers must purchase new seeds from the source every year. GMOs are patented. Growers must purchase these seeds from the firm that engineered them.
Corn and soy, those are now monocrops in a lot of states and a lot of countries. That's the only thing that a lot of farmers are growing. But they're growing it using fertilizers and chemicals that are not good for the soil. And they're not doing any type of crop rotation. And so you hear people talk about the Great Dust Bowl. And now I'm hearing people say, well, yeah, it could happen again if we keep doing things that way. Now we all know what's going on with the honeybees and the monarchs and other pollinators. They're going to these places where it's monoculture and where it's been sprayed and there's a lot of chemicals, and it's killing them off.
Beekeeper Kevin Forrester shares eco-friendly techniques for raising bees at the Seed Bank. The Virginia native provides samples of organic bee products such as honey, beeswax, and propolis. Kevin's handcrafted top bar beehives are single-story and frameless. Some beekeepers believe top bar hives, in which the honeycomb hangs from removable bars, create a more natural environment for bee colonies than traditional box-style movable frame Langstroth hives.
They're a very old-fashioned agricultural product. I mean, they're one of the first things that we probably tried to start keeping as a domesticated animal.
Kevin is delivering top bar nucleus colony beehives to Spring Coyote Ranch on the Point Reyes Peninsula.
I've been working with Kevin Forrester for the last year, trying to get into bees. We bought a ranch 3 years ago, and I set about trying to put together a heritage farm basket, and honey has been a big part of my goals for that basket.
Whether you choose to put chemicals in your hive, or whether you choose to put antibiotics in your hive, or whether you choose to put pesticides in your hive, those are choices that you make, and that's, to me, that's what makes a hive natural or unnatural.
We have natural hives all around us. It indicates the health of an ecosystem.
A lot of flowers nowadays that have been genetically modified to be ornamental. They're very beautiful, they're very showy, they're very colorful, but they produced zero nectar, zero pollen. Back in the days when my great-grandfather was growing vegetables, the desired effect was a lot of taste, easy reproduction, and pest resistant. Nowadays, they don't worry about pest resistant because you can spray Roundup on anything. They don't worry about flavor because they worry about being able to get a product to market 3,000 miles away.
Much fertile agricultural acreage and many habitats are now at risk from the deleterious effects of rapid industrial growth, climate change, urban sprawl, and the proliferation of wars. National and international seed banks or seed vaults are seen as a last resort for plants in danger of extinction.
One thing that a seed bank will do will be that even if a habitat gets destroyed, you may still be able to reconstruct what was there based on seeds that if they're still viable.
The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, or Doomsday Vault in Norway, stores an extensive collection of plant seed samples representing the world's crop diversity. These duplicate samples are stored to protect against the loss of seed types in the event of global catastrophe.
It's one prong of maintaining habitats, maintaining diversity. Of course, the best way to preserve that is to preserve the habitat, to preserve the areas.
These foods, these seeds have been around for thousands of years, and we want them to stay. We want them to be available to us forever.
Gardening combats what is known as nature deficit disorder, a term used to describe alienation and stress developed in children who grow up without a relationship to nature. A nature-based curriculum is at the heart of many school and community gardening programs.
I think the garden is a great laboratory for kids and for humans of all ages, because it's not a laboratory in a sterile sense, it's more of a practical laboratory. So we get to create and work with organisms and ecosystems in a practical, real-world scenario instead of something that is a little compartmentalized and hard to relate to. This is something that we can understand and actually consume, and it's part of our life.
In Northern California, many school systems are rediscovering the wisdom of teaching gardening to students. They learn about independence and sustainability, and also develop healthy habits for eating and exercise that will last a lifetime.
"23% of children from ages 2 to 5 are overweight and at a high risk for a lifetime of health challenges. A strong farm-to-school, hands-on curriculum can make a difference in how kids understand food and experience the environment. In Sonoma County, many schools are developing unique farm-to-school programs.
Farm to School is a really important message to share with the younger generation, and having it incorporated into curriculum and in the schools makes it an easier message to share with the students.
With kindergarten, mainly through 2nd grade, we focus on exploration. And then as we get older, we get more scientific.
We plant fruits and vegetables, we harvest trees, we mulch, and we take care of the ecosystem.
Getting your own organic plants and your own organic soil and working with stuff on the farm and being really resourceful within the stuff that you already have.
We're also learning different careers within these fields. So we're just branching out mainly around farming and agriculture and learning lots of things about those.
A huge part of the curriculum is connecting children to the food that they see on an everyday basis and understanding its origins and where it comes from.
And I think in general, learning the importance of a healthy food cycle, it's one of the most important messages I think we can teach in nutrition education. The more importance you put on sustainable, healthy growing practices, the better quality, nutritious items you'll be able to receive.
We begin every year in the fall by saving seed. Having children understand the delicate, the complex task of letting a plant go to seed and collecting its seeds, saving it until the next year, and then replanting year after year.
The kids know the difference too when they taste it of a product that's been shipped in from overseas and processed, and then when they get to taste product grown in their own gardens, the light bulbs go off where they just want more of it.
Ooh, look at that one, you got.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this one, Caleb? Will you grab that one? Yeah.
It definitely saves a lot of money for you and your parents, and it just teaches you how to be able to take care of yourself and have your garden and your food and your vegetables and everything, instead of having to always go to the store and buy it.
The USDA reports that less than half of U.S. school districts employ farm-to-school programs. But of those who do, students retain healthy habits when the gardening curriculum is paired with food preparation activity.
So Monday is our cooking day. We introduce a new recipe every 2 weeks, and groups come down half a class at a time and they participate in the cooking class. And the recipe that we cook down here in the garden is then seen on the menu the following week.
Our cooking class is actually really cool. We get to take everything that we grow here, and just last week we made Korean onion pancakes, and they tasted amazing. We've made like salsa, all different types of food from our organic farming.
And I think there's a connection when you are in a horticulture class and you're actually planting those things in the garden, and then you have a class where a chef comes in and he's cooking those ingredients, that you have a little bit of ownership in that, and it kind of completes the cycle, and I think that makes them more interested in it.
Currently, we're serving our children over 80% organic food in our cafeteria.
Not saying that every ball field should be turned into a farm, but I think it's a good idea to have our food production closer to where we live.
Getting back to the importance of knowing where your food comes from and establishing those relationships with your farmers and learning from them and sharing recipes or sharing ideas and growing seasons and products.
School gardens and homes across the country are empowering themselves to teach these skills, the ancient skills of growing your own food, so that it's not a matter of cost. It's not something that you can't afford, and it's not something that is affordable to some and not affordable to the majority, but it's something that we are all empowered to do.
When schools and early childhood education programs integrate farm-to-school curriculum, kids are more likely to understand the environment, agriculture, and the importance of healthy eating.
There are many different styles of gardening, including gardens with a primary mission of preserving and cataloging plant specimens from around the world. These gardens are saving our biologic heritage for future generations from the effects of climate change and shrinking habitat.
The goal of ecology and biology is maximum biologic diversity. Maximum biologic diversity is having as many different species as possible, because different species perform different functions. And so from an ecosystem perspective, if we have many different species, we have different functions performed, and then there's a greater likelihood that no matter what the environmental stress or different pest or mold predation, most likely the resilience is built into the food web so that we can still have plant success and success of the ecosystem as a whole, instead of one species overruling the rest.
Situated in an unforgettable location showcasing beauty, texture, and shape, Quarry Hill is a garden built around community education with an international reputation for species preservation.
Some biologists are predicting that by the end of this century, we may lose half of all species, plants and animals, on the planet. There'll still be plants and animals everywhere, but they'll be the weedy species that can adapt to human-disturbed habitats. Change is happening very, very rapidly, and now with climate change on top of it, it's going to be very difficult for many, many plants and animals to survive.
In the Mayakama foothills of Sonoma County, where abandoned rock quarries once stood, grows one of the world's preeminent botanical gardens. The garden, founded in 1987 by Jane Davenport Jansen, is now a base station for international conservation efforts, a living laboratory for scientific researchers and students, and a tranquil refuge from our increasingly urban way of life.
Bringing people of all ages into the garden and having them learn and see and touch and realize how beautiful and how important these plants are. Hopefully people will go away and realize we need to do everything we can to protect what few wild areas are left.
The Quarry Hill Botanical Garden contains one of North America's most important collections of Asian plants grown from wild seed.
There is an extinction crisis happening around the world. Plants and animals are going extinct everywhere. And in areas of dense population like China, the situation is even more severe. So to collect plants, especially plants that are endangered, and get them to researchers and botanic gardens for conservation efforts is extremely important.
Quarry Hill makes annual expeditions with partners such as the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew to collect seeds from endangered Asian plants. Seeds and herbarium specimens are then shared with host countries and with renowned botanical institutions. The California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco has a well-established relationship with Quarry Hill.
Bill McNamara, who's the director of Quarry Hill, is a field associate at the California Academy of Sciences. He goes out every year to collect seeds for Quarry Hill Botanical Garden. We encourage him to make specimens and to deposit them.
The California Academy of Sciences' 2 million herbarium specimens comprise the largest collection of vascular plants in the western United States and the 6th largest collection in the country. The Academy's voucher specimens are used for scientific research, for conservation efforts, and for educational endeavors. Quarry Hill has played an important role in the collection and conservation of numerous plant species, which include the rare, endangered maple, Acer pentaphyllum.
Before Bill McNamara collected Acer pentaphyllum, we didn't have any collections of it. A specialist from Harvard confirmed that it was properly identified. Harvard has the biggest collection of East Asian and particularly Chinese plants in the United States. They have only 5 collections, and here we look like we've got maybe 20. And theirs are all very old collections, fairly old, collected around World War II or right before World War II.
Botanists now believe that within a decade, the rare maple is destined for extinction. Quarry Hill has begun an ambitious conservation project to save the Acer pentaphyllum. Wild seeds are first cultivated in the Quarry Hill nursery. When ready, the Acer pentaphyllum are carefully planted in a garden grove. It is hoped that seeds produced at Quarry Hill will one day aid reforestation projects in China. There are fascinating links between plant types currently extant in Asia and vegetation once native to North America.
Much of Eastern Asia is what's called a refugia. It's really a remnant of plants which occurred much more widely distributed all across Europe, Asia, and North America in earlier times, many millions of years ago.
Many people consider roses the quintessential garden plant. The main influence on modern roses is Chinese roses. So many of the plants that are popular ornamentals in our garden have originated in that part of the world. Peonies that people grow, camellias that people grow, wisterias, lilies, maples, the list just goes on and on and on.
Botanists and horticulturalists have come to recognize Quarry Hill among the foremost collections of Asian plants in North America. The conservation of diverse plant life is vital to our existence.
We evolved outside in the natural world with butterflies and toads and conifers. We're completely dependent on the planet around us for our survival. Everything is interconnected, and you need to feel it.
Gardening provides community members a gateway to the natural world. By nurturing the plants in our backyard, at our schools, and in our community gardens, we develop an understanding and connection to nature. That connection benefits both us and the environment.
If there was one thing that I love conveying to other people is optimism. We have all of the tools, the knowledge, the ancient wisdom, and now the biologic and genetic understanding. We have the tools to sustain ourselves. We have the tools to feed every single person and beyond. There are more microbes in a teaspoon of healthy soil than people on this planet. And as long as we understand that we have the power to exponentially increase that number, we can have a huge effect, sequester carbon, and leave this planet much better than it was when we were born.
North Bay Bountiful is made possible in part by Rocky, the free-range chicken, and Rosie, the original organic chicken, the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District, Made Local magazine and Sonoma County Go Local, and through the generous support of the Sonoma County Water Agency.